Annalise reported on this development a little earlier that the White House has run interference over a radio interview that he did this week in which it edited what could and couldn't go to air. Is that not the sort of stuff that dictatorial regimes do in the Middle East and Eastern Europe, not to mention China?
Yeah, it's really a problem, and it's for a couple different small radio stations. So you can imagine the White House believing that they had the ability to sort of push these folks around. Look, I've set these interviews up before when I was chief of staff, and these smaller local channels would do just about anything to get a one-on-one with the president of the United States. It's a big deal for them.
Yeah.
So if they do the interview, and the White House calls afterwards, they ask for a favor, they would absolutely give it. So I don't blame the radio stations, but there's also news today that a former major anchor from a major network had information 2 years ago from a cabinet secretary who said that the cabinet secretary said he didn't think that Biden could finish the term, and that major anchor sat on that story. So yeah, there's going to be real questions after this whole thing is over about the role of media in our democracy. It's, again, been a very, very strange time, and not just with the president's help.
Well, I mean, particularly the mainstream left-wing media in the United States too. I mean, already it had been in some strife over the Hunter Biden or the lack of reporting re Hunter Biden and the laptop, which obviously became a big issue. Now, you've posed this question in an op-ed in The Hill this morning, Mick, and it's a good one, I think. What has the White House or his advisors been doing all this time? Because George Clooney writes about the fundraiser and the debate which swayed his opinion, but his decline has been obvious for years.
It has been. Keep in mind, it was almost 2 years ago now where he had a press conference and asked for a dead member of Congress. I don't know any other way to say that. He looked around the room and said, "Where's Congresswoman Walorski?" And she had died in a very high-profile car accident a couple weeks before, and he had spoken about it at a memorial service. So there's a lot of folks who've been wondering about this for several months. I had dinner the other night with some very prominent Democrats, and they kept telling me how stunned they were at the debate performance. I'm like, the only way you could be stunned if you're only watching the left-leaning media who's refused to cover this story. Go back to my point about the anchor, the very prominent news media personality in this country who had this story a long time ago and did nothing about it. Again, one of the subtexts here, Peter, is going to be the role of the media in our democracy going forward, because right now they have just about as little trust as President Biden does.
Who's the anchor, Mick?
It was Chuck Todd who gave that.
Right. So, I mean, as you heard from a report before we came to you, there is a feeling, and Nancy Pelosi might have some say in all of this, Chuck Schumer too, no doubt, that once NATO is cleared, then it really gets interesting. How do you see this shaking down? Because it feels like it's as leading to an inevitable conclusion. It's just that Joe Biden's got to change his mind.
Yeah, you had a clip on just a second ago from Jamie Harrison, who's a friend of mine. Jamie's from my state of South Carolina, the African-American gentleman who was very vociferous in his support of Joe Biden. You need to understand that that gentleman is the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. He's not an elected official. That attitude, that vociferous support is not present right now amongst most of the members of Congress. Actually, today, for the first time, a senator came out, Peter Welch from Vermont, a self-described progressive, came out and said that he thought Joe Biden should step aside as the candidate. So the pervasive atmosphere here is that Biden has to go, and the debate has already turned then to, okay, when that happens, will it be Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket or someone else?
Well, okay, I've gone over time, but I just want one more. Who do you think Donald Trump would be most worried about, if anyone, to replace Biden?
I think he would love to run against Joe Biden, would love to run against Kamala Harris. I think there's a 95% chance that one of those two will be at the top of the ticket. When you start talking about anybody else, you get into unknowns, and the Trump team would have to spend a lot of time and a lot of money trying to educate the American public about why they shouldn't vote for the governor of California or the governor of Michigan. So the Trump team right now wants Biden or Harris, and my guess is they'll get it.
Okay, there you go. Mick Mulvaney, good to see you as always. We'll chat to you soon.